Today I will show my process of making a wire circlet for my Arwen cosplay. This circlet was based on a rendering by Hannah Alexander. I started off by drawing a pattern on paper using my head circumference for scale. I made sure to measure this with my wig on. Then, following my pattern, I bent my millinery wire to match the curvature that I drew on the paper. Don't worry if the wire doesn't lay absolutely perfectly along your drawn line. You'll have the chance to adjust this when you join it. What matters most is you have the correct circumference. Make sure to add a bit extra so you can join your circle. I used tie wire to join the back of the circlet by wrapping the overlapping pieces tightly and then using super glue to secure it. This takes a bit of time, but getting the tie wire to lay neatly will make this join extra secure. This is what it looked like when I joined my circle. Next, I drew the detailed parts of the circlet on my paper pattern and followed the same process I did before of bending my wire to go along with the pattern and used tie wire to secure these extra pieces to my base and glued them down. Here's what that part of the process looked like. Once I added all my detail wire, I wanted to add some dimension to the circlet for visual interest. I used scraps of Wonderflex and Warbler to add dimension to the circlet to mimic the rendering I was basing this off of. I worked in small sections and kept adding scraps if it looked like it needed it. I painted and sealed the circlet, and then it was time to add the floral details. I bought this hair wire off of Amazon to cut apart and attach. I used a thinner jewelry wire to attach these detail pieces because I didn't want to add bulk to the base circlet. I followed the same process as before with attaching these details. I wrapped the base with the wire tightly and then glued them down. This process was more finicky because there were so many base wires to navigate around. Once all the floral elements were added, I added this beaded chain to the base. I used the jewelry wire again for this. I kept trying this on and referring to the drawing to get the proportions right. This took even longer to attach to the base because there were a lot of dangling parts to navigate around, but it felt a bit zen to do so. I really enjoyed this process. And sometimes it helped to use my pliers to get into the tight spots. Next, I added these leaf details on some of the chains using jump rings and pliers. And apologies that my camera is out of focus. but basically I opened the jump rings, added the leaves, then attached the jump rings to the last rung on the chain by tightening the jump ring back up. I also added crystal teardrop beads on the chains for even more sparkle. I used the jewelry wire to make loops that could more easily attach to the jump rings. Lastly, I stitched this silk chiffon veil that I hand dyed by using a whip stitch. At first I was intimidated by making this, but when I broke it down to its component parts, it felt much more manageable, and even ended up being fun to make. I hope this helps others on their crown creations.